Okay, so today is Tuesday, August 29th, 2023. This is the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. So yesterday, I alluded to the fact that there was a piece of litigation winding its way through the court system that pertained to the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. Grayscale has been in what seems like an epic battle with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission in their effort to convert the trust into essentially an ETF of sorts, okay? And finally, and I alluded to the fact that, hey, there could be a judgment regarding this question at any point. Well, any point happens to have been today. Now, without getting into all the detail of the legal ruling, essentially, what this means is that the United States Securities and Exchange Commission will have to articulate to Grayscale specifically why they're not allowing Grayscale to convert their trust into essentially a spot Bitcoin ETF. Okay, and I'm kind of generalizing here a little bit just to kind of keep the conversation simple. Now, this is really, really like a big deal because remember, we have a lot of investors clamoring, begging the SEC, right? Hey, we want exposure to Bitcoin, but we'd like to have that exposure through maybe a BlackRock exchange traded fund, right? An ETF, or maybe an ETF offered by Fidelity or any number of other companies that are out there that have applied for essentially permission to offer a spot Bitcoin ETF. So you have all these investors clamoring for that. Then you have these institutions, such as I alluded to, BlackRock, Fidelity. These are some of the most heavily regulated and scrutinized and some of the largest asset management companies on planet Earth, okay, who have demonstrated through a long, long history the ability to manage investor funds in a manner that's ethical and that's appropriate, okay? These aren't, BlackRock's not a startup that was launched, like 2 years ago or something like that. These are very well-established firms, okay? So there's that, factor that you have all these institutions that are also telling the SEC, hey, look, we've gone above and beyond to demonstrate that we are capable of, essentially being good fiduciaries of investor money, right? So you have investors, you have these institutions. Now you have the court system that's not specifically telling the SEC what to do here, so to speak, but the court system seems to be saying, the SEC seems to be acting in a manner that's maybe a bit inconsistent. Right? It's one of those things where I think there's an appreciation for the very difficult job that the SEC has, because when investors are harmed, invariably, all eyes focus on the SEC. And then the question is, hey, what did the agency do to help protect investors? So that's a very, I think, important and cherished function of the SEC. But now we're getting to a point where I think reasonable people who do, like me, I believe very wholeheartedly in the mandate and in the function of the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. And I have a lot of respect for the hardworking professionals who do a thankless job, really, of trying to keep investors safe. But now we're reaching a point where I think we need to make a decision. And I think that decision is likely to come out on the side of allowing a spot Bitcoin ETF. Now, look, based on today's relatively non-consequential court ruling, I say non-consequential. If you're a Grayscale Trust unit holder, this is great news, right? Because there's a really good chance that you might see those, the trust be converted, to an ETF. Now, the court's not mandating that happen, but look at what happened in the financial markets today. I'm just looking across the entire publicly traded Bitcoin mining ecosystem. It's nothing but green. This is like a phenomenal day. Stronghold, for its part, was up over 15%, which is phenomenal. But hey, look, the marathons of the world up nearly 30%. Gosh, I'm just looking at some of these names here. We did really well, actually. We did really, really well. Cypher Mining up 16% or so. Clean Spark, which gets mentioned quite a bit. And for some reason, here it is. Yeah, up about 16% as well. Again, if you look at these charts, it looks like they all kind of shot up and then just kind of started going sideways, which is fine. Hey, it's one of those things. But look at, if a relatively non-specific court ruling, right? It's not that the court's saying that the SEC has to allow a spot Bitcoin ETF. The court is not saying that. But just the mention, right, of a court telling the SEC they need to articulate to Grayscale as to, hey, well, why are you disallowing Grayscale from converting their trust into an ETF? And if you read sort of the details of the ruling, I mean, the implication is, look, SEC, you have to kind of be consistent here. And so I suspect, this is, pure speculation on my part, but I suspect that the SEC is eventually going to look at all the data and conclude that BlackRock and Fidelity, these aren't fraudulent operations that were launched 6 weeks ago, right, by some murky, outfit, or, trying to get out, like, these are above board, incredibly scrutinized, highly, highly respected institutions that are fully capable, from my perspective, of being very good fiduciaries of investor money. Okay. Now, hey, look, Bitcoin is super risky, right? I mean, it goes up, it goes down. Nobody really knows the future of Bitcoin. But when it comes to the matter of, like, hey, is the asset management company itself, right, is it going to just like vanish overnight? I don't think that's likely in the case of a Fidelity or in the case of a BlackRock or in the case of the multitude of other highly respected, very well known. I mean, if I went through all the names, you'd probably know at least half the names on the list, if not all of them. I think we're at an inflection point where the SEC is more than likely to allow a spot Bitcoin ETF to exist. Now, I'm smiling a bit because to me, it's a little bit interesting how markets respond to different things. But be that as it may, this is not quite a full catalyst, but I think it's a partial catalyst, which we saw take effect immediately today. From the perspective of Stronghold Digital Mining, the company is more than likely going to announce that we've reached 4 exahash of Bitcoin, of having a Bitcoin mining hash rate as of basically the end of this week. If not, probably next week we'll get the news release. That's what I'm suspecting. The dashboard, as I alluded to yesterday, will change this Thursday. I'm going to go ahead and update it to indicate we've reached 4 exahash, which I kind of think we have. But again, until we have the official news release, we're not going to really, celebrate, so to speak. But I do want to update the dashboard simply to start collecting the data in a way that's a little bit more accurate as to like what's really going on. As always, be positive, be great, and we'll see each other then.